Friday, July 4. Further thought. If you have the book, read Ellen G. White's Moses chapter in Patriarchs and Prophets, pages 241 to 251, which will give you significant insights into the studied portion of the biblical text for this week. The biblical text states that the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive, in Exodus 1 verse 17. Ellen G. White aptly comments on the faithfulness of the midwives and the messianic hope in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 242. She writes, "Orders were issued to the women whose employment gave them opportunity for executing the command to destroy the Hebrew male children at their birth. Satan was the mover in this matter. He knew that a deliverer was to be raised up among the Israelites, and by leading the king to destroy their children, he hoped to defeat the divine purpose. But the women feared God and did not execute the cruel mandate. The Lord approved their course and prospered them." End of quote. The good news in all this is that despite Satan's plans, God overruled and he used faithful people to thwart the enemy. We do live in the territory of our enemy, whom Jesus called the prince or ruler of this world. We read in Ephesians 2 verse 2, "In which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience." And John chapter 14 verse 30, "I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me." Satan usurped his position from Adam, but Jesus Christ defeated him in his life and through his death on the cross, as we read in these passages. First of all, Matthew 4, verses 1 to 11. "Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. Now when the tempter came to him, he said, 'If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread.' But he answered and said, 'It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God.' Then the devil took him up into the holy city, set him on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, 'If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge over you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone.' Jesus said to him, 'It is written again, you shall not tempt the Lord your God.' Again the devil took him up on an exceedingly high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, 'All these things I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me.' Then Jesus said to him, 'Away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve.' Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him." And John chapter 19 and verse 30, "So when Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, 'It is finished,' and bowing his head, he gave up his spirit." And finally, Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14, "Inasmuch then as the children have partaken of flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is, the devil." Although Satan is still alive and active, as revealed in his attempt to kill those children, his own execution is certain, as we read in John chapter 12, verse 31, "Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out." And John 16, verse 11, "Of judgment, because the ruler of this world is judged." And Revelation 20, verse 9, "They went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them." And verse 10, "The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they will be tormented day and night for ever and ever." And verse 14, "Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. The good news is that life's difficulties can be overcome by God's grace, as you read in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That grace is our only hope. And that brings us to our discussion questions for this week. 1. Why did God allow the Hebrews to live in Egypt and be oppressed? Why did it take so long for God to intervene on their behalf? Remember, too, that each person suffered only as long as the person lived. That is, the time of suffering for the nation was long, but each person suffered only as long as that single person lived. Why is making that distinction important in seeking to understand human suffering in general? And question 2. Dwell more on the question regarding how God was able to use Moses' hot-headed act of killing the Egyptian. Suppose he hadn't done it. Would that have meant the Hebrews would not have eventually escaped from Egypt? Explain your reasoning. And this Sabbath I expect to be attending a church in Toronto in Canada.
For further reading, A Lesson from the Life of Moses in the Ministry of Healing, pages 474 to 478, and Influence of the Mother in the Adventist Home, pages 240 to 243.
Good morning and welcome to the third quarter Sabbath School Inside Story. No Rats for Lunch by Andrew McChesney. Peter Semiakobo enjoyed digging for rats in a mountainous village in Zambia. The boy and his family ate the rodents with maize meal porridge at mealtime. They also enjoyed eating pigs and bubblefish. Pork was always on the table at Christmas. Bubblefish was popular for its boneless meat. So it came as a surprise to Peter when he learned that the Bible prohibited his favourite meats. He heard about unclean food for the first time when he travelled about 20 miles from his hometown to visit a brother who was working at a farm operated by Seventh-day Adventist missionaries from the United States. He stayed for Sabbath worship services, and the preacher spoke about the clean and unclean animals of Leviticus 11. Peter realized that he and his family were following a meal plan that didn't match the Bible's teaching. After a while, the missionaries began to hold worship services in Peter's elementary school on Sabbath afternoons. Peter attended the meetings even though he had to walk 2 miles to reach the school. His parents, however, discouraged him from going and reminded him that he had been baptized as a baby. Father even ordered him to work on the family farm on Saturdays. Peter didn't know anything about Sabbath observance, and he quickly did his work in the morning so he could go to the afternoon meeting. In high school, Peter made new friends from Adventist families. He studied the Bible with them and gave his heart to Jesus in baptism by immersion. He stopped eating rats, pork, and bubblefish. Over time, his friends grew to appreciate the seventh-day Sabbath. They understood why he didn't eat unclean meat. Every Sabbath that he was at home, they encouraged him not to be late for Sabbath school. Today, there is an Adventist church in Peter's town. Throughout the Adventist influence, many townspeople have stopped eating unclean food. Peter is grateful that he learnt as a boy about the importance of healthy living and glorifying God with his diet. After all, 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God," from the New King James Version. "Thank Jesus for saving me from unclean food," said Peter, a church elder and head of the Social Sciences Department at Rusangu Secondary School, a Seventh-day Adventist high school in Zambia. Please pray for the gospel to be proclaimed in Zambia and other countries in the Southern African Indian Ocean Division. the recipient of this quarter's 13th Sabbath offering. Shout out also to my friend Belinda, who listens to my recordings every day as she's working.
And remember, God is always faithful.